The revolution spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had imagined possible. Within 3 days of Captain Lee's broadcast, uprisings erupted on over 200 worlds. Species that had never spoken to each other began coordinating their resistance. Using the communication networks that humans had helped them build, the Galaxy Council watched in horror as their carefully maintained control structure collapsed. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the human flagship as it approached the water. Dancer homeworld, the crisis that had threatened to destroy the peaceful aquatic aliens was ending, but the larger transformation of galactic civilization was just beginning. Scatter reports showed that most of the Council blockade fleet had either withdrawn or joined the rebellion. Captain Lee met Admiral Park at the orbital station above the Water Dancer planet. The station was now filled with representatives from dozens of alien species who had come to coordinate their resistance efforts. The sight amazed Park. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together as allies against Council oppression. Admiral, the revolution is beyond anything we imagined, Lee reported as they walked through corridors filled with aliens planning their new future. The Reptilian Empire has declared independence from the Council. The Insect Confederacy has stopped paying tribute. The Crystal Miners have formed an alliance with the Sky Gliders to share resources and technology. Park nodded as he observed the bustling activity around them. What about the Council itself? Are they trying to negotiate? Lee smiled grimly. Director Vex tried to contact us yesterday, offering to lift the ban on human alliances if we would help them restore order. But it is too late, Admiral. The species that have tasted freedom will not go back to being controlled and exploited. In the main conference room, representatives from over 50 species had gathered to discuss forming a new galactic organization. Queen Vash of the Reptilian Empire spoke with Elder Myra, while Commander Zrix coordinated with the Sandigger leadership. The old enemies and isolation were being replaced by cooperation and mutual respect. D'Archo had arrived from Earth with a team of specialists to help establish the new communication and coordination systems. She worked with alien scientists and engineers to create networks that no single authority could control. The technology would ensure that information flowed freely between worlds. The Water Dancers had become symbols of the new galaxy. Their courage in protecting human advisors despite Council threats inspired species everywhere. Coral, the Water Dancer leader, addressed the assembly, explaining how their small contribution had helped change everything. We are not a powerful species, she said, but we learned that even small voices matter when they speak truth. The humans taught us that friendship is stronger than fear, and we chose to trust that lesson. Even when it seemed dangerous, Admiral Park was invited to address the gathering as the senior human representative. He spoke about humanity's desire to be partners rather than leaders in whatever organization emerged from the revolution. We do not want to rule or control anyone, he explained. We want to help build a galaxy where every species can reach its full potential. The discussions continued for days as the representatives worked out the structure of what would become the Free Galaxy Alliance. Unlike the old Council, this organization would have no central authority that could become corrupt. Power would be distributed among all member species, with decisions made by consensus rather than by the strongest voices. The human contribution to the alliance was welcomed but carefully balanced. Humans would participate as equals, sharing their knowledge and receiving the same benefits as other members. Captain Lee was appointed as one of the human ambassadors, but he would work alongside alien colleagues rather than commanding them. Transformation was not without challenges. The old Galaxy Council did not disappear completely. Several dozen species remained loyal to the authoritarian system, either because they benefited from it or because they feared change. These holdout worlds formed their own smaller organization but found themselves increasingly isolated. Director Vex and his security forces retreated to the heavily fortified Council Core worlds, where they tried to maintain their old system of control, but without the tribute and resources from rebellious species, their power base crumbled. Many of their own people began questioning why they supported leaders who ruled through fearsome Council loyalists. Attempted military action against the rebel worlds, but discovered that the new alliance had defensive capabilities they had not expected. Species that had learned human tactics of cooperation proved remarkably effective at mutual defense. The alliance fleet was smaller than the old Council forces, but more motivated and better coordinated. The Economic transformation was as dramatic as the political changes. Trade between alliance worlds flourished as species shared resources and knowledge freely. The crystal miners' energy technologies spread rapidly, improving life on dozens of worlds. The sky glider transportation methods revolutionized commerce. The sand digger mining techniques helped resource-poor planets develop their own wealth. Cho established research partnerships that advanced scientific knowledge faster than anyone had thought possible. When species freely shared information and worked together on problems, discoveries happened at an incredible pace. Medical advances developed on one world quickly reached others where they could save lives. Commander Nam created the Alliance communication system using lessons learned from the secret networks that had started the revolution. Information flowed freely between worlds, allowing species to coordinate responses to natural disasters, trade opportunities, and diplomatic challenges. The success stories multiplied across the galaxy. The turtle people who had first learned human defense tactics became teachers themselves, helping other peaceful species learn to protect themselves. The coral builders shared their underwater construction methods with desert species who adapted them for underground cities. Captain Lee found himself traveling constantly between alliance worlds, helping to establish the new systems and solve problems that arose. The work was challenging but rewarding as he watched species that had been oppressed for generations learn to govern themselves effectively. The Free Galaxy Alliance faced its first major test when natural disasters struck three-member worlds simultaneously. Coordination between species allowed rapid response as nearby systems provided emergency aid. The Alliance fleet evacuated civilians while engineering teams from multiple species worked together to address the crises. The response proved that the new system could handle challenges that would have overwhelmed individual species. The old Galaxy Council had often ignored disasters on less important worlds, but the Alliance treated every member as equally valuable. Admiral Park reflected on the changes during a quiet moment on his flagship. The galaxy that had once banned human alliances now celebrated human friendship. Species that had been afraid to speak up now governed themselves with confidence. The Council's greatest fear had come true. Humans had made everyone else stronger, but instead of creating chaos, this strength brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. The Alliance had no interest in conquest or exploitation. Its members were too busy building better lives for their own people to threaten others. The transformation continued as new species applied to join the Alliance. Word spread about the benefits of cooperation and freedom, attracting civilizations that had remained neutral during the revolution. Each new member brought unique capabilities and perspectives that made the entire Alliance stronger. Years later, historians would mark Captain Lee's broadcast from the Water Dancer planet as the moment that changed galactic civilization. The Galaxy Council had tried to maintain control through fear and isolation, but the truth about human partnerships had inspired a galaxy-wide awakening. The ban on human alliances had been officially lifted, but it no longer mattered. The galaxy had learned that friendship and cooperation could not be controlled by laws or governments. When people helped each other grow stronger and braver, no force in the universe could stop them from building a better future together. Captain Lee, now Admiral Lee, smiled as he watched alliance ships from a dozen different species working together on a joint exploration mission. The Galaxy Council had been afraid of human alliances because they knew such partnerships would change everything. They had been absolutely right. Captain Lee stood in the underwater communication center of the Water Dancer City, looking at the transmission equipment that would either save the galaxy or doom humanity to war. The chamber was filled with flowing water that the aquatic aliens breathed, but special breathing apparatus allowed Lee to work normally. Gentle currents moved through the room, carrying the soft voices of water dancer families who had gathered to watch this historic moment above them. Council warships continued their blockade, cutting off all normal communications and threatening to destroy coastal cities if the humans were not surrendered. The ultimatum deadline was only 6 hours away, and Admiral Orcs had already begun targeting orbital facilities to show he was serious about his threats. Lee had spent the past 2 days preparing for this broadcast with help from communications specialist Juan and the Water Dancer technical experts. They had managed to link their equipment to the planet's hidden communication satellites and bypass the Council jamming systems. The message he was about to send would reach every corner of the Galaxy DR Park worked nearby helping water dancer families prepare for possible bombardment while Engineer Lim reinforced the underwater cities against attack. The humans had done everything they could to protect their alien friends, but everyone knew the Council had superior firepower. One finished the final technical checks and nodded to Captain Lee. The connection is stable, Captain. Your transmission will reach the main communication networks on over 500 worlds. The Council will try to cut it off, but our backup systems should keep the signal going for at least 30 minutes. Lee took a deep breath and activated the recording equipment. He had rehearsed this speech many times, but the weight of speaking for all humanity made his voice shake slightly as he began. Brothers and sisters across the galaxy, I am Captain Lee of Earth speaking to you from the Water Dancer homeworld where Council warships threaten innocent civilians. The transmission began reaching alien worlds almost immediately. Emergency broadcast systems carried the signal to public communication systems in major city species that had never heard a human voice before listened. As Lee continued his message, I want to tell you the truth about why the Galaxy Council banned alliances with humans. They did not ban us because we are violent or dangerous. They banned us because we help other species discover their own strength and potential. When aliens work with humans, they stop being afraid and start standing up for themselves. Lee paused and looked at the water dancer families watching him with their large, gentle eyes. Their trust gave him strength to continue. This terrifies the Council members who built their power on keeping others weak and dependent. They profit from your fear, and they lose money when you become confident and independent. The broadcast continued. As Lee shared examples from across the galaxy, he told how the sand diggers learned they did not have to accept dangerous working conditions for unfair pay. He explained how the crystal miners discovered they could negotiate better deals for their valuable resources. Every species that worked with humans became stronger and more free. As Lee spoke, something amazing began happening across the galaxy. Species that had been helped by humans started joining the transmission. The sand diggers appeared on screen, showing their improved mining equipment and safety protocols. Their leader, Keck, spoke directly to the camera, explaining how human advisors had taught them to organize without teaching them to hate. The crystal miners added their voices, showing the fair contracts they had negotiated and the new technologies they had developed with human guidance. Their spokesperson, Elder Gem, explained that humans never asked for payment or control. They only wanted to help others succeed. One more species joined the broadcast. The Sky Gliders demonstrated their organized tribal councils and explained how human teachers had helped them create democratic government. The Rock Eaters showed their debt-free communities and described how human financial advisors had taught them to manage their resources. The Galaxy Council tried desperately to stop the transmission. Director Vex ordered jamming systems activated and demanded that local authorities cut power to communication centers, but the human networks had prepared for this. Emergency backup systems activated and the signal bounced through dozens of hidden relays. The broadcast reached even the most remote planets as alien species shared the transmission through their own communication networks. The message spread faster than the Council could stop it, reaching populations that had been isolated from galactic politics for generations back. On the Water Dancer planet, Lee continued his speech with growing passion. The Council claims they maintain order and stability, but look around the galaxy. How many species live in fear of Council tax collectors? How many worlds send their resources to enrich distant politicians while their own people struggle? The transmission showed images of Council exploitation across the galaxy, species forced to work in dangerous conditions for minimal pay, planets stripped of resources while the inhabitants received nothing, civilizations held back from technological advancement to maintain their dependence on Council systems. Lee addressed the galaxy directly. You have been told that you need the Council for protection, but who protects you from the Council? You have been told that you are too weak to govern yourselves, but every species that works with humans proves this is a Lee. The most powerful moment came when Lee invited the water dancers to speak for themselves. The aquatic aliens had never been political, but their recent experiences had taught them about justice and courage. Their elected leader, Coral, spoke with simple dignity about their choice to protect their human friends. We are not warriors, she said, but we know right from wrong. The humans helped us learn that we have voices and that those voices matter. The council threatens to destroy our cities because we will not betray our friends. This shows you what the council really thinks about justice. As the broadcast continued, something unexpected happened. Council soldiers and crew members began refusing orders to attack civilian targets. Many of these military personnel came from species that had been oppressed by the council for generations. Hearing the truth about human partnerships reminded them of their own peoples suffering on the council fleet around the water dancer planet. Several ships began withdrawing from attack positions as their crews questioned whether they were fighting for justice or for corruption. Admiral Orcs found himself facing mutiny as soldiers from a dozen different species refused to bombard civilians. The broadcast revealed the fundamental truth that the Galaxy Council had tried to hide. Humans were not conquerors or manipulators seeking to control other species. They were teachers and friends who helped others discover their own potential. The Council feared this because confident, independent species could not be exploited. Lee concluded his message with a direct challenge to the Council and an invitation to every species in the Galaxy Council wants you to believe that freedom and cooperation are dangerous, but look at the evidence. Every species that works with humans becomes stronger, happier, and more prosperous. He gestured to the water dancer families around him. These peaceful people face bombardment not because they committed crimes, but because they chose friendship over fear. The Council will destroy them to send a message that loyalty to humans is punishable by death. The transmission ended with Lee making a promise to the Galaxy: humanity will not abandon its friends, we will not bow to threats, and we will not stop helping species that want to be free. The Council can try to silence us, but they cannot silence the truth that freedom is stronger than fear. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, something extraordinary happened. Across the galaxy, alien species began responding to Lee's message, not with words but with actions. Strikes began on dozens of worlds as workers refused to accept unfair treatment. Protests erupted in cities where civilians demanded better government. The Council had expected their show of force to frighten other species into abandoning human partnerships. Instead, the broadcast had inspired a galaxy-wide uprising against Council authority. The truth about human alliances had been revealed, and there was no way to hide it again. On the water dancer planet, the immediate crisis began to resolve as Council ships withdrew or had their crews refuse orders. The blockade was crumbling as military personnel chose justice over blind obedience. The Council ultimatum became meaningless when the forces meant to enforce it joined the rebellion. Captain Lee looked at the water dancers around him and smiled. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council had tried to use fear to maintain control, but the truth had set countless species free. The real test would come next as this new awakening spread across the stars. Director Vex stood before the assembled Galaxy Council representatives in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime. His tall skeletal frame cast long shadows under the bright lights, and his 4 red eyes scanned the faces of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The evidence he was about to present would confirm their worst fears about human interference in galactic affairs. The massive circular chamber held delegates from over 300 species, each sitting in sections arranged by their political influence. The inner circle contained the oldest and most powerful civilizations, while newer species sat in the outer rings. The humans had never been invited to join this assembly, and now everyone understood why Director Vex activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber with images and data. Charts showed the locations of recent rebellions across the galaxy and timelines, revealed the suspicious coordination between different resistance movements. His investigation had taken months, but the pattern was undeniable. Honored delegates, Vex announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. I have confirmed what we feared most. The recent uprisings across our territories are not random events. They are part of a coordinated campaign led by human agents who are deliberately undermining our authority. Angry voices erupted from the assembly as representatives shouted demands for action. The crystalline ambassador raised her glowing form and spoke with a voice like breaking glass. We warned you that humans were dangerous. Their philosophy of equality and cooperation threatens the natural order of galactic civilization. The Void Lord's delegate floated in his containment suit and added his electronic voice to the complaints. Humans make other species believe they can govern themselves without proper guidance. This leads to chaos and instability throughout our territories. Director Vex continued his presentation, showing surveillance footage of human advisors meeting with alien resistance leaders. The evidence included communication intercepts, training materials, and testimony from captured rebels who had been interrogated by Council security forces. The investigation has identified at least 40 human operatives working across 20 star systems, he reported. They use sophisticated disguises and false identities to avoid detection, while providing training resources and coordination to insurgent groups. High Chancellor Morp, the ancient leader of the galaxy Council, struck his ceremonial staff against the floor, demanding silence. The massive creature resembled a walking tree with bark-like skin and glowing amber eyes that had witnessed centuries of galactic politics. This evidence confirms our decision to ban human alliances, he declared in a voice that rumbled through the chamber. Humans are indeed too dangerous to be allowed free interaction with other species. Their influence spreads like a virus, turning loyal citizens into rebels and criminals. The water dancer situation had pushed the Council to take dramatic action. 3 days earlier, their enforcement fleet had surrounded the peaceful aquatic planet after intelligence reports confirmed human advisors were helping the aliens organize resistance to fishing quotas. The water dancers had never been involved in galactic politics, but human influence had made them bold enough to challenge Council authority. Council Admiral Zorks reported on the military situation from his position near the chamber's center. His species had evolved from predatory hunters, and his sharp teeth gleamed as he spoke. The water dancer planet is completely blockaded. Honorable delegates, our ships control all orbital space and have cut off their communications with the outside galaxy. He activated tactical displays showing the positions of Council warships around the blue ocean world. 47 vessels, including 3 battle cruisers, have taken positions around the planet. We have detected at least 5 human advisors on the surface, including the notorious Captain Lee, who has been linked to multiple resistance movements. The chamber erupted again as delegates demanded to know why the humans had not been captured. Admiral Zorks explained that the water dancers were protecting the humans and had refused all demands for surrender. Their underwater cities made military operations complicated, and the Council wanted to avoid creating martyrs. High Chancellor Morp rose from his massive throne and addressed the assembly. The time for subtle measures has passed. We must make an example that will show other species the consequences of working with humans. The water dancers will surrender the human criminals or face the full power of Council. Justice Director Vex added to the presentation, showing intelligence reports about human activities on other worlds. Our agents have identified additional human operations in progress. If we do not act decisively, the rebellion will spread to dozens more systems. The humans have created a network of insurgent groups that could destabilize our entire civilization. The debate that followed revealed deep divisions within the Council. Some delegates wanted immediate military action against human colonies, while others preferred diplomatic solutions that might avoid galactic war. The newer species in the outer rings remained mostly silent, but their body language showed fear and uncertainty. The mechanical collective representative spoke with a synthesized voice that analyzed probability matrices. Military action against humans carries significant risks. Their species has proven adaptable and resourceful in previous conflicts. A direct confrontation could unite their allies against us, but the powerful inner circle delegates were focused on maintaining their authority and profit margins. The human influence was directly threatening their control over weaker species and their ability to extract resources and tribute from subjugated worlds. The merchant prince's leader stood and addressed the chamber with calculations of lost revenue. Humans have cost us billions of credits in reduced taxation and tribute payments. The species they help become independent stop paying the fees that fund our government and military. Council Admiral Zorks presented military options for dealing with the human threat. He recommended starting with the water dancer planet as a demonstration of Council resolve. If we show that protecting humans leads to severe consequences, other species will think twice about accepting human assistance. Vote was closer than expected, but the hardline position won by a significant margin. The council authorized Admiral Zorks to use whatever force necessary to capture the human advisors on the water Dancer planet and to begin punitive actions against any species that continued to harbor human agents. The ultimatum was transmitted to the water Dancer planet the next day. Admiral Zorks personally delivered the message to the aquatic aliens using the planetary communication system. You have 72 hours to surrender all human agents on your planet. If you refuse, we will begin orbital bombardment of your coastal cities. The water dancers' response came within hours, transmitted by their newly elected council that had been organized with human help. We are a peaceful people who have never threatened anyone. The humans are our guests and friends. We will not betray those who have helped us learn to govern ourselves. The message included a detailed account of how human advisors had helped the water dancers organize their scattered communities and resist unfair fishing quotas that were depleting their oceans. The aliens made it clear they understood the risks but were willing to face council punishment rather than abandon their human friends. Admiral Zorks began implementing the council's will by targeting orbital facilities and cutting off supply shipments to the planet. The bombardment was carefully limited to avoid mass casualties, but the message was clear: the water dancers would suffer until they complied with council demands on the planet's surface. Captain Lee and his team of human advisors faced an impossible situation. Dr. Park worked frantically to help the water dancers prepare for a siege, while communications specialist Juan tried to maintain contact with human command. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The water dancers had never fought a war, and their gentle nature made it difficult for them to think in military terms. But the humans helped them find creative solutions using their natural abilities to control ocean currents and manipulate underwater environments. Captain Lee knew that the Galaxy Council was using the water dancer crisis to send a message to the entire galaxy. Any species that protected humans would face similar punishment. The Council believed that fear would be more effective than their previous ban on human alliances, but the human networks had been preparing for this moment. Messages went out through encrypted channels to every resistance group they had helped over the past months. The time for secrecy was ending, and the galaxy would soon discover whether the bonds of friendship were stronger than the weapons of oppression on Earth. Admiral Park received constant updates about the water dancer situation. His staff worked around the clock preparing response options, but every choice carried enormous risks. Sending human warships to break the blockade would mean open war with the Galaxy Council. The crisis was reaching its climax as the Council ultimatum deadline approached. Captain Lee and his team were trapped on an alien world facing bombardment from space. The water dancers had chosen to protect their human friends even though it meant suffering. Council Punishment Director Vex monitored the situation from his command center, confident that the demonstration of council power would end human interference in galactic affairs, but he had underestimated both human determination and the loyalty of TH. Captain Lee stood in the cargo bay of his modified transport ship, watching as Commander Num checked their disguises one final time. The ship looked like an ordinary trader vessel from the outside, but hidden compartments held advanced communication equipment and training materials that could help alien species organize resistance against Galaxy Council oppression. It had been 3 weeks since Admiral Park's decision to form secret alliances with oppressed alien species. Captain Lee and Commander Nam had already made contact with 12 different groups, using encrypted messages and hidden meeting locations. Each species had different problems, but they all shared the same fear of standing up to Council authority. Their current mission would take them to Kova, a desert planet where the sand diggers had been forced to mine rare crystals for the Galaxy Council for over 50 years. The small peaceful aliens received almost no payment for their dangerous work, while Council representatives became wealthy from selling the crystals to other species. Commander Nam adjusted her trader uniform and checked the fake identification papers. The sand diggers have never organized any kind of resistance, she said quietly. They are naturally gentle and avoid conflict. Their council overseer treats them like slaves, but they do not know how to fight back. Captain Lee nodded as he put on his own disguise. That is exactly why we need to help them, Commander. The sand diggers do not need to become warriors. They just need to learn that they have rights and that working together makes them stronger than working alone. The ship landed at Kova's main spaceport just after sunrise. The desert air was hot and dry, and red sand covered everything. Lee and Nam walked through the port carrying cases of what appeared to be mining equipment, but actually contained secure communication devices and organizational materials. The Sand Digger settlement was a collection of low buildings made from dried mud and salvaged metal. Hundreds of small aliens moved slowly between the buildings, their movements showing exhaustion from years of hard labor. Their skin was tough and leathery, adapted for desert life, and their large eyes helped them see in the dim underground mines. Lee and Nam set up their fake trading post in an abandoned building near the settlement center. Within hours, curious sand diggers began approaching to look at their equipment. Lee used simple words and gestures to communicate, while Nam quietly observed how the aliens interacted with each other. The breakthrough came when Keck, an elderly sand digger who spoke some galactic common language, approached their stall. He looked around nervously before speaking in a whisper. "You are not really traders, are you?" he asked. "Your equipment is too advanced and you ask too many questions about our working conditions." Lee decided to take a calculated risk. "Keck, we are friends who want to help your people. The Galaxy Council is treating you unfairly, and we think you deserve better." Keck's large eyes widened with fear and hope at the same time. "You cannot help us," he whispered. "Council Overseer Grix has armed guards and connections to the space fleet. If we cause trouble, they will punish us severely." Commander Nam leaned closer. "That is exactly why we are here, Keck. We can teach your people how to organize and resist without violence. There are ways to make your voices heard that do not require fighting." Over the following days, Lee and Nam carefully built trust with small groups of sand diggers. They met in hidden locations during rest periods and taught basic concepts of worker organization and peaceful resistance. They explained how the sand diggers could use their knowledge of the mines and their large numbers to negotiate better conditions. Dr. Young arrived on the third day disguised as a medical trader. She was actually a human psychologist who specialized in helping oppressed groups overcome fear and build confidence. Dr. Young worked with individual sand diggers, helping them understand that their fear of authority was keeping them trapped in unfair situations. The transformation began slowly. A few brave sand diggers started talking to their families about the ideas the humans had shared. Groups of workers began meeting secretly to discuss their problems and share ideas for solutions. The aliens discovered that they all had similar complaints about working conditions, pay, and treatment by council representatives. On the 10th day, the sand diggers made their first coordinated action. A group of 50 miners refused to enter the deepest tunnels, citing safety concerns that had been ignored for months. When Overseer Grix threatened to punish them, the entire mining crew stopped working in solidarity. Grix was a large reptilian alien who had grown rich from exploiting sand digger labor. He stormed into the settlement demanding to know who was organizing the resistance, but the sand diggers had learned from their human teachers. They gave no names and spoke only about their legitimate safety concerns. The humans stayed hidden but provided advice through secure communication channels. They helped the sand diggers understand their legal rights under Galaxy Council labor laws and taught them how to document safety violations and unfair treatment. The standoff continued for 5 days. During this time, more sand diggers joined the resistance, and their demands expanded beyond safety to include fair wages, proper medical care, and representation in decisions about their working conditions. Overseer Grix called for council enforcement troops, but the request was denied because the sand diggers were not being violent. Finally, Grix agreed to negotiate. The sand diggers had prepared carefully with human guidance. They presented detailed proposals for improved working conditions and refused to accept partial solutions. The negotiations lasted 3 days but ended with significant improvements in wages, safety standards, and worker rights. News of the sand digger success spread quickly through the human secret networks. Within days, messages arrived from other oppressed species asking for similar help. The coral builders wanted to learn how to defend their underwater cities from council taxation. The sky gliders needed help organizing their scattered tribal communities. The rock eaters sought assistance in breaking free from debt that had trapped them for generations. Captain Lee and Commander Nam expanded their operations, working with teams of human specialists who could address different types of problems. Dr. Park provided medical training to species with poor healthcare systems. Engineer Kim taught construction techniques. To aliens whose homes were falling apart, teacher SEO shared educational methods with species whose children were denied proper schooling. Each operation followed the same careful pattern. Human advisors would arrive disguised as traders or travelers. They would build trust with local populations and identify natural leaders within the alien communities. Then they would provide training and resources while staying hidden in the background. The key to success was making each resistance movement look completely natural. Humans provided guidance and support, but the alien species did all the actual organizing and negotiating. When council investigators arrived, they found only local aliens standing up for their rights with no obvious outside help. Commander Nam developed new technologies that helped the growing network of resistance groups communicate securely. Encrypted messages could be sent between planets without council detection, and emergency signals allowed groups to warn each other about enforcement actions. The network grew rapidly as successful resistance movements inspired others. Species that had never considered challenging council authority began organizing strikes, protests, and negotiations. The humans provided a steady stream of advisors and resources while carefully avoiding direct confrontation with council forces. But the Galaxy Council was not blind to what was happening. Director Vex, the head of council security, began investigating the pattern of rebellions that were spreading across the galaxy. His reports showed that uprisings were using similar tactics and achieving similar results, suggesting coordination from an outside source. Council investigators started visiting planets where resistance movements had been successful. They questioned alien leaders and searched for evidence of human involvement. The pressure was building on the secret networks as the council grew more suspicious and more desperate to maintain control. Captain Lee received urgent messages from several alien contacts warning that council forces were asking about human traders and travelers. The careful disguises and hidden identities that had protected the human advisors were beginning to attract attention. During a secure communication session with Admiral Park, Captain Lee expressed his concerns. Admiral, the council is getting closer to discovering our involvement. Their investigators are specifically looking for humans who might be helping resistance movements. Admiral Park considered the situation carefully from his command center on Earth. We knew this moment would come, Captain. The question is whether we have helped enough species become strong enough to stand on their own. The answer came sooner than expected. 3 days later, council enforcement fleets surrounded the peaceful water dancer homeworld, demanding that the aquatic aliens surrender any human advisors they might be hiding. The water dancers had recently organized themselves to resist unfair fishing quotas imposed by the council. Captain Lee and a small team of human advisors were trapped on the planet. When the council ships arrived, the situation had escalated beyond secret resistance to open confrontation. The Galaxy Council was ready to use military force to stop human involvement in alien affairs. The crisis would test everything the humans had built. Their net. Admiral Park stood at the head of the long metal table in the underground command center on Earth. The room was deep beneath the surface where no alien satellites could detect their meetings. Bright lights reflected off the polished walls, and the air hummed with the sound of computers processing information. 20 of humanity's best military leaders sat around the table, their faces serious as they waited for the meeting to begin. Captain Lee had returned from his secret meeting with the alien leaders just 6 hours ago. He sat near the front of the table, still wearing his space uniform. His report lay open in front of Admiral Park. 3 pages of shocking information that would change everything for humanity. Admiral Park looked around the room at the faces of men and women who had spent their lives protecting Earth and human colonies. General Kim sat with his arms crossed, his jaw tight with anger. Commander untapped her fingers on the table, clearly wanting to take action. Dr. Cho, the chief science officer, had her tablet ready to show data that would help them understand the situation. The meeting began with Admiral Park reading key parts of Captain Lee's report aloud. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the tension beneath the words as he spoke about the Galaxy Council's new law banning human alliances. Angry murmurs filled the room. When he explained how the Council feared human partnerships because they made other species stronger, several officers slammed their hands on the table. General Kim was the first to speak after the report ended. His voice was loud and full of rage. Those Council cowards think they can tell us who we can befriend. They built their power by keeping other species weak and scared. Now they want to stop us from helping people stand up for themselves. Commander An leaned forward, her eyes flashing with determination. We should ignore their stupid ban completely. Humans never asked to join their corrupt club, so why should we follow their rules? Let them try to stop us from helping our alien friends. Dar Cho activated her tablet, and a large screen on the wall showed charts and graphs. She stood up and pointed to the data. General Kim and Commander An, I understand your anger, but we need to look at this situation carefully. The numbers show exactly why the Council is so afraid of human partnerships. The screen displayed information about recent human collaborations with alien species. Dr. Cho explained each case in detail. When humans worked with the crystal miners, they helped them discover new energy sources that increased their profits by 400%. The miners became wealthy enough to buy their independence from Council control. She clicked to the next chart. When humans trained with the bird warriors, they developed flight techniques that made them unbeatable in aerial combat. The bird warriors stopped paying for Council military protection because they could defend themselves. Chart after chart showed the same pattern. Every alien species that partnered with humans became stronger, more confident, and more independent. They stopped accepting unfair treatment from the Galaxy Council and started making their own decisions about trade, defense, and government. Captain Lee spoke up from his seat. The three alien leaders I met with explained it perfectly. Humans have a gift for helping others discover their own potential. We do not try to control our partners, we teach them to control their own destiny. That is what scares the Council. Colonel Back, who commanded the Earth Defense Forces, raised his hand. Admiral Park, what if we simply refuse to acknowledge this ban? We could continue helping alien species, but do it more secretly. The Council cannot watch every planet in the galaxy. Admiral Park shook his head slowly. That approach has serious risks, Colonel. If we ignore the ban openly, we become outlaws in the eyes of the galaxy. The Council could unite other species against US by claiming humans are dangerous rebels who do not respect galactic law. General Kim stood up and walked to the large star map on the wall. He pointed to human colonies scattered across dozens of systems. Our people live on hundreds of worlds. Admiral, many of them depend on trade with alien species. If the Council declares humans enemies, they could blockade our colonies and cut off our supply lines. The room fell quiet as everyone considered the implications. A war with the Galaxy Council would be devastating for humanity. Humans were outnumbered by thousands to one and did not have the massive fleets that some alien empires commanded. Dr. Cho brought up new data on her screen. But look at these numbers, she said. If we count all the alien species that have worked with humans in the past 5 years, we have more friends than enemies. Many species would support us against the Council if they thought we could win. Commander An studied the charts carefully. What if we do not fight the Council directly, but instead help alien species become strong enough to challenge Council authority themselves? If enough species rebel at the same time, the Council will be too busy to focus on punishing humans. Captain Lee nodded eagerly. That is exactly what Queen Vash, Commanders Rix and Elder Myra suggested. They want to form a secret alliance to help oppressed species learn how to defend themselves. We would provide training and advice while they provide resources and connections. Admiral Park walked slowly around the table, considering all the options. The room stayed quiet except for the humming of computers. Everyone knew this decision would affect not just Earth but human colonies throughout the galaxy. General Kim returned to his seat, his anger now focused into determination. Admiral, I have fought alongside alien allies in 3 different wars. They saved human lives and we saved theirs. The Council wants to destroy those friendships because they threaten corrupt politicians and greedy traitors. Dr. Cho added her scientific perspective. The data shows that human-alien partnerships create innovation and prosperity for everyone involved. When we share knowledge and work together, both sides benefit. The Council wants to stop this because they profit from keeping species isolated and dependent. Colonel Back spoke again. What about our military capabilities, Admiral? If we help alien species become stronger, we also gain stronger allies. A network of independent species working together would be much harder for the Council to control than individual weak colonies. Commander An leaned back in her chair, thinking out loud. The Council made a mistake by banning all human alliances at once. If they had done it gradually, we might not have noticed the pattern, but now we know they are afraid of human partnerships. That gives us an advantage, Captain. Lee pulled out a secure communicator device. The alien leaders are waiting for our response, Admiral. They risked everything to meet with me and warn us about the Council's plans. They trust humans enough to become criminals in the eyes of Galactic. Admiral Park stopped walking and looked at each person in the room. These were the people who would have to carry out whatever decision he made. They were soldiers, scientists, and strategists who had devoted their lives to protecting humanity. Now they faced a choice that could lead to war or to a new era of freedom in the galaxy. The Admiral returned to his position at the head of the table and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. I have made my decision. We will not bow to the Galaxy Council's ban on human alliances. We will not hide from our responsibilities to help species that are suffering under Council oppression. He paused and looked directly at Captain Lee. But we will not start an open war either. We will begin a careful campaign to help alien species become strong enough to stand up for themselves. If the Council wants to make humans the enemy, then we will show the galaxy what real friendship looks like. General Kim smiled for the first time since the meeting began. What are your orders, Admiral? Admiral Park activated the main screen, showing a map of the galaxy with human colonies and known alien settlements marked in different colors. We will divide our efforts into 3 phases. First, we establish secure communication networks with alien species that want our help. Second, we provide training and resources to help them organize and defend themselves. Third, we coordinate their efforts so they can support each other when the Council tries to stop them. Dr. Cho raised her hand. Admiral, this will require significant resources and personnel. Are we prepared for a long-term commitment? Admiral Park nodded. We have been preparing for this without knowing it. Every human colony has people with skills that could help alien species. Our traders know the economics, our engineers understand technology, our teachers can share knowledge, and our soldiers can provide tactical training. Commander An asked, when do we begin? Admiral Park looked at Captain Lee. You will return to the alien leaders and tell them humanity accepts their proposal. We will form the secret alliance and begin operations immediately. The Galaxy Council thinks they can control friendship and cooperation through fear and laws. They are about to learn that humans do not abandon their friends so easily. The meeting continued for 2 more hours as they planned the first phase of operations. Captain Lee would coordinate with the alien leaders to identify species that needed help most. General Kim would organize training teams that could work secretly with alien defense forces. Dr. Cho would develop new communication technologies that the Council could not detect. As the meeting ended, Admiral Park felt both excitement and worry. They were about to challenge the most powerful organization in the galaxy, but they were also about to help countless species break free from oppression and fear. The Galaxy Council had made their choice by banning human alliances. Now humanity would show them the true power of friendship and co-op. Captain Lee stepped off his small ship onto the metal floor of the hidden space station. The air felt cold and heavy around him as he walked through the dark corridors. His boots made soft sounds on the floor, but everything else was quiet. The station was old and forgotten, floating in empty space between 2 dead planets. Where nobody would think to look, he had received the secret message 3 days ago on his personal communicator. The message was short and came from someone he had not heard from in months. It said, only meet us at the old mining station. Coordinates attached, urgent matter about human survival. Lee had stared at those words for a long time, wondering what could be so important that aliens would risk contact with humans. Now the meeting room was at the center of the station. Lee found it easily because dim lights marked the path. The door opened with a soft hiss and he walked inside. 3 aliens sat around a curved table waiting for him. Lee recognized all of them from past missions when humans and aliens worked together as friends. Queen Vash of the Reptilian Empire sat at the far end of the table. Her green scales looked darker than usual in the low light and her yellow eyes showed fear Lee had never seen Her afraid before she was known across the galaxy as a fierce warrior who had led her people through many battles. Her long tail moved nervously behind her chair. Commander Zrix sat to the left, his insect body hunched forward, his forearms rested on the table, and his compound eyes reflected the room lights like tiny mirrors. His antenna twitched constantly, which Li knew meant he was very worried. Zrix commanded the largest space fleet in his sector and had fought alongside human ships. Many times Elder Mira floated above her chair on the right side of the table. Her jellyfish body glowed with soft purple light that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Her tentacles moved gently in the air currents, long whiskers hung from her face, and they trembled slightly. Myra was over 300 years old and had seen many changes in the galaxy, but she looked more troubled than Li had ever seen her. Li sat down in the empty chair, facing all three aliens. The silence stretched between them for several long moments. Finally, Queen Vash spoke, her voice lower and more careful than usual. Captain Li, we called you here because something terrible has happened. The Galaxy Council met in emergency session. 5 days ago, they passed a new law that changes everything for humans and for all of us. Li leaned forward, feeling tension build in his chest. What kind of law, Commander? Zrix clicked his mandibles together, making sharp sounds. The law says no alien species can form alliances or partnerships with humans anymore. Any species that makes deals with humans or works with them will be expelled from the Galaxy Council permanently. They will lose all trade rights, protection from Council fleets, and access to Council technology. Li felt his heart skip a beat. This made no sense at all. Humans had good relationships with dozens of alien species. They traded fairly, helped with problems, and shared knowledge freely. Why would the Council want to stop this, but does not make sense? Li said, why would they ban alliances with humans? We have never caused trouble for the Council. We follow their trade laws and respect their boundaries. Elder Myra floated closer to the table, her purple glow becoming brighter. That is exactly the problem, Captain Li. The Council is not afraid of humans because you are violent or dangerous. They are afraid because you make other species stronger. Li stared at her, confused. What do you mean, make them stronger? Queen Vash answered, her tail swishing behind her. When humans work with other species, amazing things happen. Captain Li, your people have a gift for helping others discover abilities they never knew they had. You teach confidence and new ways of thinking. You show species how to solve their own problems instead of depending on others. Commander Zrix nodded, all four of his arms moving at once. 3 months ago, the turtle people were weak and scared. They paid protection money to pirates and could barely defend their own ships. Then human advisors worked with them for just 6 weeks. The humans taught them new fighting techniques and helped them organize their defenses. Now the turtle people have driven off all the pirates and they refuse to pay tribute to anyone. Li remembered that mission. He had worked with Captain Nam to train turtle people security forces. It had been a simple job, teaching basic tactics and helping them build confidence. But he had not realized it would have such big effects. The results were incredible. Elder Myra continued, the turtle people became so strong and confident that they stopped paying the special taxes they owed to council members. Those taxes were making certain council leaders very rich. When the money stopped flowing, they became very angry. Queen Vash leaned forward, her eyes flashing. The same thing happened with the crystal miners, the bird warriors, and the deep sea builders. Every species that worked with humans became more independent. They stopped accepting unfair treatment and started standing up for themselves. The old powers in the council are losing control, and they do not like it. Li began to understand the Galaxy Council was not really upset about human alliances because they were dangerous. The council was afraid because human partnerships helped other species become free and strong. When aliens became confident and independent, they stopped being easy to control. This meeting is very dangerous for all of us, Commander Zrix said quietly. If the council discovers we are talking to you, we will be punished severely. Our species could be banned from all council benefits. We could lose our positions and our people could suffer. Then why did you risk it? Li asked. Because we need your help, Elder Myra replied. The council thinks they can control this situation by cutting off contact between humans and other species. But there are many alien groups who are suffering under council rule. They need what humans can teach them about standing up for themselves and working together. Queen Vash stood up and walked to a window that showed the empty space outside. Her reflection looked ghostly against the stars. Captain Lee, my people have been proud warriors for thousands of years, but we are feeling pressure from the council. They want us to accept new restrictions on our military and give them control over our trade routes. If we refuse, they threaten to declare us enemies of galactic peace. Commanders Rix added the insect colonies. I represent our being forced to sell our products at prices set by the council. We cannot negotiate or find better deals. Our people work hard, but the profits go to council members who do nothing to earn them. Elder Myra floated higher above her. Chair, many species are in similar situations. The council has become corrupt. They use their power to enrich themselves while keeping everyone else weak and dependent. They know that humans can change this balance. That is why they fear human alliances. So much. Lee looked at each of the three aliens. These were leaders of powerful species who commanded fleets and ruled over millions of their own people. But they were here in secret, begging for help from humans because they saw no other way to protect their people's freedom. What exactly are you asking me to do? Lee said. We want to form a secret alliance. Queen Vash replied, turning back from the window. We will work together in hiding to help oppressed species learn how to defend themselves. You humans will provide training, advice, and moral support. We will provide resources, connections, and safe meeting places. But this means we will all become criminals in the eyes of the galaxy. Council Commanders Rix warned, if we are caught, we face exile, imprisonment. Or worse. Lee felt the weight of the decision. The Galaxy Council had banned human alliances to maintain their control over other species. But these three alien leaders were willing to risk everything to fight that control they believed so strongly in. What humans could teach that they would break galactic law to get that help. The meeting room fell silent again as Lee considered the choice. Agreeing would put humanity at risk of war with the Galaxy Council. Refusing would mean abandoning alien friends who needed help. It would also mean accepting that the Council could dictate who humans were allowed to befriend. I need to discuss this with my commanders, Lee said finally, but I can tell you that humans do not like being told who we can and cannot help. If species are suffering under unfair treatment, we want to do something about it. Queen Vash nodded. That is exactly why the Council fears you. Captain Lee, humans cannot see injustice without wanting to fix it. That quality makes you dangerous to anyone who profits from keeping others down. The meeting ended with careful plans for future contact. They would use encrypted communications and meet only in hidden locations. The three aliens would return to their peoples and begin quietly identifying other species who might want to join their secret alliance. As Lee prepared to leave, Elder Myra floated closer to him. Captain Lee, she said softly, what you decide in the coming days will shape the future of this galaxy. The Council thinks they can maintain control through fear and isolation, but if humans choose to fight for justice and friendship, no law they pass will be able to stop the changes that are coming. Lee nodded and walked back through the dark corridors to his ship. As he flew away from the hidden station, he could see Galaxy Council patrol ships in the distance. Their lights moved slowly through space like mechanical predators, searching for any sign of forbidden contact. The aliens had been right to be afraid. The Council was watching everything very carefully now, but Lee also felt something else growing inside him, the same feeling he always